Hello and welcome to Angel's View. Like, subscribe, comment on today's video. I hope to hear from you and read some of your comments. Today we're going to be talking about Michael, the music biopic about the story of Michael Jackson. So straight off the bat, what did I think? I enjoyed the film, but is it a good movie? That's what it comes down to. It will fulfill your needs and make you, tap your feet if you're looking for a film that has dramatic instances in it, but then leads into musical montages, basically. There are several sequences in the film that recreate classic Michael Jackson songs. We start off, if I remember correctly, with the Off the Wall album. We lead into Thriller. We have the Motown 25, presentation where he does the moonwalk and the entire audience goes crazy. And then the film actually ends with the song Bad, which is not part of this story, because this part of the story ends in 1985, 86. And then the movie then jumps to 1988, where we have him doing the song Bad on stage at one of the concerts. So all that's great. That's great. Look, I'm of the age where I grew up with Michael Jackson. I was part of the Thriller, craziness and Bad. I remember all that. I remember going to Tower Records, HMV back in the day. Michael was everywhere. Michael created the modern music video that made it an art form. And there's something in an actual movie that comes up that I didn't even realize until I saw it in the film. Now, speaking about it, watching it, I enjoyed the musical interludes, but the dramatic part of it it wasn't there. This is a film about Michael Jackson. It is not a film about the Jacksons. Yes, he has brothers and sisters, and I'll tell you right off the bat, two of the sisters are not even in it. Janet Jackson and there's another sister whose name, escapes me, they're not represented at all. And then you have LaToya. LaToya's in it, very minimal. The brothers, yes, they are all represented. At one point, you get all their names, and then after that, barely even spoken about again. And the fact that Jermaine Jackson is in the film, represented in the film, and his son is the actor that plays Michael Jackson, Jafar Jackson. So how does this young man do? Well, I got to say, if this is his first acting gig, he did a great job. He embodies Michael Jackson to the T. He must have studied his uncle, his movements, his mannerisms, just everything about him. And you see that on the screen. I'll be honest with you, I was thrown off a little bit because physically, obviously his face, it's not Michael Jackson. But he did such a great job trying to embody that I respected it. Now, there's a lot of people saying online how fantastic he is, an incredible role. Yes, it is. But will that translate later down the line for him in other acting roles? I don't know. For this particular film, a musical biopic about the life of Michael Jackson, he did fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about Colman Domingo, who plays Joe Jackson, Michael Jackson's father, the father of the Jackson family. Okay. How is he viewed? How is he represented? What does Colman do with this role? I'll tell you off the bat, does an extremely good job with it. He is intimidating. He is that type of father that as a young man, you definitely would be afraid of him because he was laying down the law. Now, there's a sequence in this film very, very early on when we have the young Michael Jackson played by a different actor who I forget his name, but I'll tell you this. he did fantastic. I mean, the early days when they were part of the Jackson Five and the Jackson Five was becoming famous, um, Joe Jackson pushed them to their limits. I mean, these children, these young men should have been going to bed, to rest, to go to school the next day. But no, he was pulling them to do gigs, to make money, to get them exposure, which they finally did. And obviously they were, you know, they set the music industry on fire. The Jackson Five is a vital part of the music industry, but it was very evident very early on in the film that the focus was going to be on Michael Jackson. But going back to Coleman Domingo, as Joe Jackson, he embodies what a father during those years, during that time, most likely most of us that have grown up on Michael Jackson were exposed to. Look, most Latinos and African Americans grew up in households where discipline was part of life. If you did something wrong, you were getting a whooping. Okay. I don't hide around that at all. I mean, talk to anybody in my age group. They'll tell you that they were raised a certain way. And I'm pretty sure it's not only in the ethnic communities. I'm pretty sure in any community, you had fathers back in the day that just set the rules, and discipline with a belt or with the hand was part of life. There's a sequence in the film where Coleman Domingo, as Joe Jackson, takes his belt off and he whips and beats Michael in front of the rest of his family and his mother. And it is hard to see. And it's not the only time. There is another sequence that you know it's going to occur again, but it happens behind a closed door. We didn't need to continue and see that again. We already got an exposure to it. It was in your face, the after effects, how that affects Michael emotionally, obviously physically, how his mother comes to him to help him. That right there lets you say to yourself, yeah, I don't like this man. Okay, because in today's generation, that's not something you see. That's not even something you hear about anymore. It's whispered, even if it does happen. Okay, and it's so hard to see on the screen, but it also makes you understand where Michael Jackson came from and how he was raised. He was also a Jehovah's Witness. So not only was he a young man that was being disciplined by his father, but he also had a faith that many to this day consider almost cultish, and that it was very strict. So it makes you wonder, how did this young man with all this musical strength, how did he live throughout all those years? Well, that's not something that's really developed in the film. Again, this is the story about Michael Jackson, his formative years, and how he then starts becoming the king of pop. Okay? We go from the Jackson 5 time and we go straight into right before he starts developing Off the Wall. He's still part of the Jackson 5. He's still part of the Jackson family. His father still wants him to do certain things with his brothers, but he decides he wants to do a solo album. And he does this on his own time. His father basically tells him that, yeah, you can do whatever you want after 9 to 5. After that, it's all on you. So he does it. And the album is very successful. Off the Wall was a very successful album. It also became an album that started pushing the concept of videos. Okay, the classic video that comes from Off the Wall, where he's dancing in the tuxedo and they have multiple Michael Jacksons. It's a great video. Okay, and then that turns into what happens with Thriller. Now, at this point, obviously, he's become more successful than his own family, his own brothers, and it's something that really tears at his father because he's trying to continue that success. He's trying to continue that road where his family will always have. So he actually guilts Michael into having to perform in what it was known at that time, the Victory Tour. Now, mind you, this was already after the success of Thriller. And Joe Jackson made a deal with, at the time, Don King, who was a boxing promoter, but he needed financial backing to be able to promote this concert. And he was pushing it as the greatest concert that will ever be. It was going to be world renowned. It was going to travel to all countries. And yes, Michael was going to be part of it. Well, Michael was part of it, but this was also the point where Michael made a decision that he no longer was going to be part of the Jackson 5 family. And it was an interesting scene because he basically says it on stage that this was going to be the last time that they were going to be together. Something his father had not planned on at all because he was already, like I said, promoting that they were going on tour, they were going to several other countries. And no, Michael just nixed that right then and there. Now, mind you, I don't recall what happened after that as far as the whole concept of the Jackson 5, the Jacksons, and what their successes were. Because again, this just sticks with the story of Michael and how he progressed, how after Off the Wall, then Thriller became such a huge hit. And then we have the Victory Tour. Then we have the situation with the Pepsi commercial where he got burned and where they say the beginning of his downfall as far as taking medication or taking painkillers and drugs affected him to the point that we lost him later on in life. The film does not touch on that. Behind the scenes, there's been controversy pertaining to the movie. It was originally filmed, and there was a certain way the film ended. It was supposed to be actually a lot longer, and it was supposed to deal with a lot of the allegations that have been brought against Michael Jackson over the years. Allegations that he was never convicted of. Okay. There's a lot of things. Yes, people were paid off, closed door situations, all kinds of things. But let me ask you this. Are you coming to this movie to see what Michael Jackson gave to the world, or the negativity and the darkness that if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you're going to find it? This movie is not made for that. This movie is about the success and the joy that this man brought to the world, how his music changed so many things, just everything. Again, I did grow up during that time, and it was amazing to see how his music affected so many people. The videos that he brought us were fantastic. Thriller was a mini movie. Captain EO, that's not even touched on in this film. There are so many aspects that are not touched on. And I'll say this, if you're looking for a complete story about the Michael Jackson that this is not it. Again, you want to find that? You could Google, go on YouTube and find several documentaries, probably tons of interviews and things pertaining to what was behind the scenes with Michael Jackson. And I'll be honest with you, after I saw the movie, my YouTube algorithm started popping up with old, videos about Michael Jackson and something I didn't even know. Like when Bad came out and it was time for the Grammys, he was almost totally shut out. The expectation was that Bad was going to rule that night. Instead, out of, I think it was 6 nominations, all the major nominations, they only got 1. And it wasn't even for Michael. So completely shut out, in a sense, the album Bad. Because apparently at that time, the Grammys were changing their attitude towards the music industry and didn't want to give all the accolades to just one artist again, because Michael had won all the accolades and all the awards back in 1984 for Thriller. A well-deserved, okay? Very well-deserved, because again, probably one of the highest grossing albums in music history. Will we ever see that again? I just don't think, with the current conditions of the music industry, that it will. Again, this film is made for the people that enjoyed his music. If you want to know more about his life, you're probably going to have to look at other things. Will this have a sequel? The way the movie ends, again, it ends when the entire representation, of the bad song on stage during one of his world tours, and it was wonderful. I mean, it really gets your blood flowing. It's just fantastic to hear this music on a big screen and a fantastic, sound system. I had people around me that they definitely were enjoying it. And at the end of the film, they were clapping, okay, because they enjoyed what they saw. This is a film to encourage you. This is a film that's to bring joy to your heart. It's not to bring you the darkness that, again, possibility they were going to touch upon it, because from what I heard in the background, as far as the controversy, the original ending or the original third part of the film, they had to rework the whole thing because they couldn't use what they had filmed or what they had written, because the Jackson estate did not inform the producers that they couldn't use certain individuals that were involved with certain accusations with Michael Jackson in the film at all. And again, and it's also strange where you have no representation at all about two of his sisters. Literally nothing. It's literally just the Jackson boys, LaToya for a few scenes, the mother, and that's it. Overall, I enjoyed the film. Dramatically, it didn't pull on anything. I enjoyed the music aspects of it, the recreations of Michael's classic songs. Would I see a continuation of the story? Absolutely. There's so much that's not touched upon at all. And again, like I'm saying, even talking about the fact that you have this whole part of Michael's life that it's never brought up. There's so many things that are not touched upon. The women in his life, nothing. Okay? Again, if you're a Michael fan, you're going to enjoy it for the music. You will enjoy it for Jafar's, Jackson's, also his acting on par. He brought Michael Jackson to life. You will believe it's Michael. Okay? Coleman Domingo as Joe Jackson. I'm going to be curious to see come Oscar time what happens, because he played the role a certain way. Yes, you definitely are intimidated by the man, but is that something that's enough to warrant accolades from the acting community? I don't know. So if I had to give this some type of rating, which I don't remember if I ever have at all. And we'll say, out of 5 stars, I would give it, I'd give it about 2.5. I'll be honest with you. I'm straight down the middle, because I enjoyed the music, but the actual story, the background of it really didn't do anything for me. Um, Again, sadly enough, you could go online and you could, Michael Jackson, controversies. And we know there's some famous documentaries out there pertaining to a lot of the legal issues and the accusations that have been brought against Michael Jackson. But this is a film about a joyous time, about a man that brought music to the world and touched many, many people. So go for that, is what I'm going to say. I'm curious to see how this does over the weekend as far as financials. Already the numbers for the opening night, as far as the fan screenings, and Thursday night is marking it as one of the highest musical biopic openings of all time. As of me recording this, I think it has made $12.25 million in its preview screenings, opening night screenings, which is way ahead of like the top biopic contender as far as opening night, success. Again, it is what it is. It paints Michael Jackson in a certain way, and you're either going to be okay with that or you're not. If you're a fan of music, if you're a fan of what Michael Jackson stood for, you're going to have a good time. Again, this is Angel's View. Please like, subscribe, leave some comments. I want to be able to interact with people and hear what they have to say and what else you would like to hear from me. So with that, have a great night.